In this video, I'm quickly going to be covering all the buffs and nerfs for Season 1.5 for every character in the game, so let's just get straight into it, starting with the Duelist. First up is Black Panther, who sadly received no changes. Sorry Black Panther mains. Next up is Black Widow. Black Widow actually got 2 buffs. Her magazine capacity of her rifle has increased from 8 to 15, and her ultimate now slows down enemies to 55% of their walking speed instead of 80%. Additionally, it will also now apply a 15% vulnerability effect or hit enemies for 4 seconds. Her ultimate actually now sounds pretty good, and I feel like it actually has the potential to team wipe an enemy team if you can work with your team, similar to how a tank ult might work. Next up, we have Hawkeye. He got 4 buffs. His base health has gone from 250 to 275. His blast arrows now do less projectile damage, but now more explosive damage. This is a change, but also a buff, and I'm wondering if it's actually going to be enough to make people start using his explosive arrows. His Crescent Slash cooldown has gone from 15 seconds to 12 seconds. And lastly, the bow draw speed during his ult has increased, and the damage multiplier has gone from 1.2 to 1.35. Next up is Hela. She got 1 small buff, and that is that the damage fall off of her main attack at 30 meters has changed from 70% to 80%. Now, this may look like a nerf, but the developers actually work backwards from 100%. So if you want it in simpler terms, the damage fall off was 30%, now it's only 20%, meaning more damage past 30 meters. Next is the Immortal Iron Fist. Now, he got quite a lot of changes. Firstly, his base health has gone from 250 to 300. He can now gain more bonus health from damage block during Dragon's defense from 150 to 200, and this is the little shield parry that he uses. His healing ability used to grant an extra 50 health, and that has now gone up to 150, so you can now engage into fights at a crazy 450 health, and that's not even counting the health you can get from blocking damage. The caveat with this though is that 1 second after you stop healing, your bonus health will now decay at 25 health per second. His main attack combo damage has been nerfed. His main attack, just so you know, it has a combo of 6 punches, and the damage chain used to be 32, 32, 16, 16, 32, and then a finisher for 55. This chain is now 30, 30, 15, 15, 30, and 50. So overall, you're actually only losing out on 13 damage, which is nothing, but a nerf nonetheless. And for those who didn't know, because you never played Iron Fist, each punch that you would land would reduce the cooldown of his shield by 1 second. This has now been buffed to 1.5 seconds. And lastly, you know when you would use your shield, you would be able to punch super fast? Those punches are now doing 10 damage per punch instead of 19 damage. So that's less damage, but they now also do damage equal to 1.7% of the opponent's maximum health, and this even works in your ult. So his ult might actually be terrifying for tank players now. And just for comparison, Wolverine deals damage equal to 1.5% of the target's max health, but this doesn't mean Iron Fist will be doing more damage than him, because Wolverine's base damage is 15, while Iron Fist is 10. Plus, Wolverine has the Rage meter, which also increases damage by 0.045% for each point of rage. So yeah, there's a lot to take in with Iron Fist here, and I'm really interested to see how he's going to play. I can't wait. Next up is Iron Man. Iron Man got 2 small buffs. His Unibeam damage has gone from 120 a second to 140, and his Unibeam in Armor Overdrive mode has gone from 180 a second to 190. Next up is Magic. Magic got 1 nerf and 1 buff. The damage dealt by the demon has gone from 80 damage a second to 72, but her ult now only requires 3400 ult charge, which is down from the previous 3700. Next is Mr. Fantastic. He got a few different changes. Firstly, they increased the spell field radius after landing from flexible elongation from 2.5 meters to 5 meters. And flexible elongation is his, those are his back shots. It means if you use it on an enemy, you can also hit a second enemy 5 meters away from the target, and this move also now features knockback. meaning you can deal damage and knock back enemies in a 5-meter radius around the target, which is a pretty cool change. Unfortunately, the cooldown for this move has now gone from 8 seconds to 10 seconds, but you can still hold 2 charges of it. Now his ultimate. They have increased the damage of each bounce from 50 to 70, but it now requires 3400 ult charge, up from the 2800 beforehand. They have also changed how the ult works a little bit. In order to get the new 70 damage that it does, you need to bounce directly on an enemy or within 3 meters of them. And then the further away they are, the less damage they take, maxing out at the old 50 damage at the edge of his radius, which is 10 meters. Overall, these are good changes for his ult, but you will be seeing it less often. Now we have Moonlight with a nerf and a change which is both a buff and a nerf, but a change we needed nonetheless. Firstly, they reduced the Hand of Khonshu Talon's falling speed. And now Moonlight's ultimate has been a hot topic of discussion, and as it turns out, it wasn't actually bugged, but it just felt like it was doing twice the expected damage due to a hidden mechanic. In the middle of his ultimate circle, there is an invisible inner circle that is only about 30% smaller than the visible radius that you can see in-game, and this hidden circle has a unique interaction. Because if you're standing inside of it when a Talon hits the floor, it would trigger an additional 75 damage just from the circle itself. And here's where it got pretty crazy, because 4 Talons drop per second. So if you stand in this hidden circle for just 1 second, you take 300 damage from the hidden effect alone. That's on top of the Talon's direct damage, which also dealt 75 damage each in a 5-meter radius around the impact points. If a player was both inside the hidden circle and got hit by all 4 Talons in 1 second, you'd take a whopping 600 damage. Now that I've kind of explained that weird mechanic, to address this, the developers are actually removing the hidden circle in the next patch, eliminating the extra damage trigger, and to compensate, they're increasing the base damage of each Talon from 75 to 150. We'll have to wait and see how this change plays out, but it should make the ultimate feel a lot more predictable and less overwhelming, because boy did I hate dying to that in like an instant. Namor got no changes, and neither did Psylocke. Next is the Scarlet Witch. She got one small buff. She now gains 100 bonus health when she uses her ult, but when it ends, or if it's interrupted, the bonus health will decay at 50 per second. So it's going to be interesting to see if this actually does anything for Scarlet Witch. Spider-Man got one tiny buff. His web clusters now recharge in 2.5 seconds instead of the previous 3 seconds. Squirrel is also getting no changes. I think that's fair. Next is Star-Lord with one small buff as well. The maximum energy for rocket propulsion is going from 1200 to 1800, so it's going to be flying around a little bit more. And the last duelist, Storm, she got 3 nerfs and 1 tiny buff. The damage fall off for her main attack at 30 meters has changed from 70% to 60%. And next, Storm's damage during her Thunder mode has been reduced from 16% to 12%. Now this isn't the boosted version, just the base version where you can slightly damage buff yourself. However, they have also nerfed the boosted version. The damage buff for herself has gone from 30% to 25%. And lastly, the damage buff for allies within range has increased from 8% to 10%, so it's just a little support buff. Next is the Punisher with no changes, and the same goes for the Winter Soldier, surprisingly. Now this one has really shocked me, no changes to Wolverine at all. Like, what? He's the most banned character in the game at the moment, and you never see him in any games because he's just banned 24/7. Like, I don't know what the devs are thinking about this one, man. Are we gonna have another like month and a half with Wolverine just not being played? I don't know, man. That's crazy. Now we move on to the Vanguards. First up is Captain America. He has a couple of neat changes. He can now shield himself while jumping around with Living Legend, which is great because I know a lot of people have been asking for this. His shield throw has its projectile speed increased from 60 meters a second to 80 meters a second, And the ricochets between enemies will also now go at 150 meters a second instead of the old 100 meters a second. So the damage is applied quicker and your shield is returned quicker. Solid change in my opinion. Next, his ult charge has gone from 3100 to 2800, so you're going to be seeing that more often. And lastly, they are separating Sentinel Strike from melee attacks. Captain America will be able to use melee attacks while his shield is thrown or during the team-up ability Charged Aegis State to activate the first 2 hits of Sentinel Strike. Additionally, while airborne, using melee attacks will no longer trigger the Super Soldier Slam ability. Now, I know this is something a lot of players have been asking for, because it gives Captain America like a lot more options about what he wants to do moment to moment, whether you want to be punching through shields or throwing your shield or something else. Is great changes here. Next up we have Doctor Strange, who's getting one small nerf and his health is just going from 650 to 600. Now Groot, they are increasing the range you can place his Thorn Lash walls from 15 meters to 18 meters. And just so you know, this doesn't count for the Ironwood wall, which is staying at 10 meters still. Now, I'm really surprised here, but Hulk is getting no changes at all, despite being one of the most banned characters in Ranked at the moment. Yeah, I don't know about this one, guys. Next, we have Magneto. His main attack projectile damage is going from 35 to 40, and his shield now consumes 65 energy a second instead of 50 energy a second. And they are also reducing the duration you can have it up from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Now, I'm surprised again, but Penny Parker is getting no changes at all, unfortunately. Thor is getting one small buff, is that whenever he comes out of his Awakening Rune state, which is where he can throw like thunder waves at people, he would have to wait 2 seconds before he could use any of the other abilities, and they are now removing this, thank God. So you can come out of Awakening Rune state and go straight into like Hammer Throw or Dash. It's a good, solid change. Next, we have Venom, and they are changing his dive, so instead of knocking people straight up into the air, it will now be at a 75-degree angle, so they're going to be knocked a little bit closer to Venom, which is good, so you can like use his grasp. They are also reducing his ult charge requirement from 2800 to 2500. Now we move on to the strategists, starting with Adam Warlock. They are buffing his main attack by increasing the damage from 55 to 60, and the damage fall off at 40 meters used to be 50% and now it's going to be 60%. Now this is pretty good because Adam Warlock already does decent damage, so now he's going to be like a true DPS healer if you can hit the shots. Secondly, they are also increasing the amount of healing provided by Soul Bond from 10 healing a second to 15 healing a second. And solid change again, he just needs a little bit more reliable healer. Next is Cloak and Dagger. They are increasing the energy cost of her ult from 3400 to 4000 and also reducing the duration from 10 seconds to 8 seconds. But the amount of healing from each segment is being increased from 220 a second to 250. They are also speeding up the pause timer between each dash from 1 second to 0.67 seconds. This is sad news to me personally, because as a Magneto player, there's nothing better than killing a Cloak and Dagger ult with your ult, and now it's going to be pretty darn hard to do that fast enough because she's going to be zooming around. They are also changing it so the healing effect from each segment doesn't stack, meaning there's no point in like dashing back over a segment that you just created. You just sort of dash around and spread it around as much as you can. And they are also unlocking the camera control for the ult, so we'll have to see how that feels. Lastly, they are also increasing the vulnerability on enemies affected by Terror Cape from 20% to 28%. So yeah, when you use the little purple square and then hit them afterwards, you're going to be doing a lot more damage to them. Well, not a lot more, but a little bit more. I'm actually pretty surprised to see Cloak and Dagger wasn't hit as hard as I thought she might be in terms of nerfs, but I guess they're being pretty careful with it. And really, they still nerf the ult, which is the important part, so the duration doesn't last as longer, and those were the biggest problems. But yeah, I wasn't expecting to see those 3 little buffs that she got. Invisible Woman is just getting one small nerf, which is her ult charge. It's going from 4000 to 4300. And somehow, Jeff is getting no changes. Poor Jeff, man, poor Jeff. Maybe they want like Jeff to stay as this weird DPS flanking hybrid. That's like the only like efficient way to play him at the moment, because he just dies like really easily, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they're waiting to see guest players come out of the shadows and hit the top 500. I don't know. Next up, we have Loki. His ult charge is going from 3,400 to 4,000. And his main attack ammo count is going from 10 to 12, so there's a tiny buff there. And lastly, Luna Snow, just like all the other supports, her ult charge is also increasing from 4,000 to 4,500. That is crazy. So they're really going after the triple support meta here and the amount of ults we're going to be seeing. I say lastly because neither Mantis nor Rocket Raccoon are getting any changes, but I'm less surprised by these two characters compared to like the Hulk and the Wolverine getting no changes. I'm also just going to cover the team up abilities real quick because some of them are actually pretty important. Luna Snow's team up with Iron Fist is just getting a little bit better. The amount of healing when activating the ability is going from 50 to 75 and the slow is going from 20% to 30%. So just a little something. Next we have the team up with Magic. The rewind time will be going from 5 seconds to 3 seconds, so that's a little bit of a nerf, but the conversion ratio of lost health to blue armor will be going from 0.5 to 0.8. So this affects both Black Panther and Psylocke, so it's a little bit of a nerf followed by a little bit of a buff. Now we have Gamma Charge, which is perhaps one of the strongest team ups in the game at the moment. Iron Man's Unibeam damage in Gamma Overdrive is going from 220 a second to 200. And Hulk's team up Anchor Health is actually going from 150 to 100. So earlier, when you're thinking like Hulk's got no nerfs whatsoever, actually he's just lost 50 health. It's pretty much nothing, but you never know, it might make him feel a little bit worse. So yeah, there is that. Next up is a neat little extra feature for the Moon Knight team up with Cloak and Dagger. The Full Moon ability where you go invisible will actually now heal you for 25 health a second. So that's actually pretty neat in my opinion. It's really going to help if you're like playing Moon Knight at weird like off angles or flanking where the healers can't get to you. And if you take damage, you can just kind of retreat around a corner or something, pop your bubble and just stand there and heal yourself. I'm actually kind of looking forward to see how this is utilized. It's pretty interesting. And lastly, we have the Symbiote Bond, which is the team up with Venom. Penny Parker and Spider-Man will now be invincible whenever they use this ability, but it's only going to last for like 1 second, and if I'm being honest, I actually already thought they were invincible in the black goo because whenever you shot them, it did like no damage, which turned out to be true because it would half your damage, but there's just no point hitting them in my opinion. So now they're just downright invincible, but unfortunately it's also changing from 4 seconds to 1 second. So yeah, they are going to be invincible for 1 whole second, and when you really think about it, you can do a lot with invincibility. It means Penny Parker and Spider-Man, if they're caught in an awkward situation where they can't move around, they're going to be able to survive an Iron Man ult or Scarlet Witch ult, which is kind of crazy. I can imagine a situation where you're playing Penny Parker or Spider-Man, and somehow you get hit by the Groot ult and you're getting sucked in, and then Iron Man pops his ult, you can turn into black goo and just survive it. That's kind of crazy. And yeah, that's it. There's no changes for any of the other team ups. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I tried to keep it as simple as possible and just display the information outright instead of making it confusing. Hope you enjoyed the video, and adios. Hey guys, YouTube thinks you'll love these videos, so go ahead and check them out. And if you enjoyed this one, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps me out. Cheers.